Hola amigos, this is Level 12, and today we are going to be talking about how Japan Sinks 2020 lost the plot, and yet I still loved it. So this is going to be more of a rant-ish style video. I have points and bullet points and stuff lined up, but I just wanted to talk about this anime because it went off the rails quicker than I imagined it ever could, and let me tell you, the audience are not happy with it. I think I gave it a 7 or an 8 on my anime list, but its average score right now is a 6.52, I believe, so that's kinda low for an anime I thought would do very well. It reminded me a lot of Tokyo Magnitude 8.0, and if you like Japan Sinks 2020, or you want something better than it, I would highly recommend Tokyo Magnitude 8.0. But without any further ado, let's get into the video. So first we're going to do a quick synopsis slash kind of what I liked. So basically Japan Sinks 2020, which by the way, the title, when it came out, pure gold. This had to have been in production in like 2019 or maybe even 2018 to like celebrate the Japan Olympics that were supposed to happen and all of that jazz, but obviously, we're in quarantine. It still feels like March to me, so that's the kind of time span we're in right now. But basically, the plot is these huge seismic, I think they might even be volcanic activity happens, and Japan quite literally sinks into the ocean, and you follow a family going through this. Ayumu, the teenage daughter, who's also a runner, Go, who's an avid video game lover and have friends in Estonia, the father, who's a construction worker, and the mother, who, I don't know what her job is, but she has a heart condition that you learn about later in the show. By the way, spoiler warning. Anyways, so you follow them along with an Estonian guy named Kite, a runner, another runner named Koga, who stopped running for I can't remember why, and then just a bunch of random characters that end up dying 2 episodes after you meet them. It's great, and that's good. I liked the show because it always kept you on your toes, almost. Like, it pulled a huge Akame ga Kill, but it kept you on your toes. You're like, what is happening? What's going on next? Where on earth are we going? From one moment we went to a supermarket, and then the next moment we were quite literally in a weed drug Yakuza compound place with someone that can talk to the dead. I'm not kidding. That's the transition that you go through. It's so weird, but I loved it. I loved how weird it was. I loved the characters. All the characters seemed believable, and I liked them. Even the ones that, like, you saw for a short amount of time. Even if you didn't get connected to them, they all felt real and believable, and you like them to a certain extent. At least I did. And that was, like, great and all. Overall, this was, if you're, like, full force chaos and you just like weird stuff happening and you don't mind really that the plot kind of goes off the rails a little bit, cause it does, then I highly recommend this show. I cannot recommend it enough. I don't want to give too much away, but that's the basic premise of the show, and they eventually try and figure out why Japan is sinking and how long it's going to take for it to resurface. It's a whole mess. It is a whole mess, and I highly recommend that you watch it. My favorite character is Kite. He's the only character whose name I remembered because I've been meaning to cosplay him. So that's basically the main plot of the show and what I liked about it. Again, it's crazy, it's chaotic. But there are many things in this show that just didn't go very well. So first of all, as I said before, it pulled some great Akame ga Kills. So what is pulling an Akame ga Kill? Well, that means having a bunch of pointless, in quotes, death. So some death is expected in a show like this. It's a disaster show. Not everything's gonna be peachy keen. Even, like, you know, some kids shows will have death in them, like Adventure Time. So I wasn't too shocked when people started to die. The first major character that died was the dad, and he died so quickly and, in retrospect, a little stupidly, but, like, I was happy with his death. You know, I was like, I could get behind his death. The second character to die was a friend whose name I don't remember because she wasn't important, died due to some natural gas being unearthed, and it was just so quick and sudden, and it was like, oh, okay, you're dead now, I guess. Okay, wow, cool, okay, dead, oh. And then you meet the Estonian guy. At first I didn't like Kite, he's the Estonian guy, but he became my favorite character. And then they go to the drug compound, and then they realize that the Mount Fuji is going to erupt, and a big earthquake happens, and a bunch of people just willingly die in an earthquake. And it's like, okay, that's fun. And then just a bunch of characters just die. Like, things just happen. And I mean, I guess that's like plausible and like that's what you would expect, but it's just they die so quickly. And then like some of the deaths didn't even feel worth it. Like the mother, you find out about her heart condition and like an episode and a half later she's dead. Okay? And that's just kind of like annoying because you've known like the show hints that something's medically is wrong with her. I thought she was pregnant. She had a heart condition. I didn't know that. They hinted at it pretty well, though. I guess I'm just kind of dumb. But then she dies, and then they're like, oh no, we gotta get this little thing here's the codes, the plans, this is how we're gonna know Japan's gonna, rise, and they lose it. And then the runner guy, the guy on screen, this is literally the scene of his death, by the way, and he's was like a super good runner, and so he runs and he gets it, and it's like, yeah, and then a wave kills him, and then you're like, Koga, I thought he was gonna live, and it's sad. I was upset at Koga's death. I don't know if Kite died, to be honest. They hinted that he died, but they hinted that he lived, and the way Kite exited made him look like a jerk, but in reality, he was just trying to help the kids. There's just a lot of death in the show, and not all of it felt justified. Like, you like the characters, and you don't want them to leave as quickly as they did. It's a little off-putting, and one of the things a lot of people had an issue with, they were saying the show was very nihilistic because of all the death that happened, and all the characters that are there just die when you like them, and I mean, I agree. The minute you start liking a character, oh, they're gone, sorry. And it's just, okay, Japan sinks, alright. So the next issue of the show was they had a big racism message, which didn't pull through. So Ayumu and her brother Go are half Filipino because their mom is full-blooded Filipino and their dad is Japanese, but they only know how to speak Japanese and they lived in Japan their entire lives. And this show sometimes would have a racism theme, sometimes not. Some people, like this old man, were like, Japan is good, foreign things are bad. And then like when he met Go, when he realized Go was foreign, he like changed his tune, which is good and all. But then there were these characters that are like Japanese only, and they would come and go. Like it wouldn't be, I mean, it was important enough that they couldn't get on a certain ship, but it wasn't important enough that it made an impact on the characters at all. I think the show tried to have a big overarching message that your ethnicity doesn't determine how Japanese you are based on how the ending was, but it just didn't pull through. I agree, show. Racism is bad, but the way the show portrayed it wasn't, like, good. I've definitely seen better shows to portray, like, the racism message. This really ain't the way to go about it, because it did it so flippantly. I think if it had two main core messages along with a couple others spread through, it was racism and grief. And I don't think you can, because they're both very serious messages, and I don't think you can do both in a 10-episode time span where a lot of things happen at once. Not with all the death, not with all of this jazz. You gotta pick one and stick with it. So just as with the racism message, it tried to have a message about grief, because Ayumu was very hurt by her father dying. Like, that was her parent, her preferred parent over, like, her mom, when, some people have that. And Ayumu wanted to grieve. She was so attached to her father, and she never really got the time to grieve, and her mother, like, that was the main conflict between Ayumu and her mother was, you don't care about dad, and the mom's like, I care about dad, we just have to move on. And it's like, you're just showing this dynamic, but there was never really a conflict resolution to this issue until Ayumu realized that her mom had, like, a pacemaker. And I mean, that's like, cool and all. Ayumu realizes her mom's going through it, but, like, that to me didn't feel like that conflict was resolved. I mean, it was kind of resolved down that weird weed Yakuza death compound thing. Like, I wish I could just explain to you guys why that was my favorite part of this entire show. The death Yakuza thing. But the grief message was, like, played out a little bit. It was here, it was there, and it's, I don't know, I felt like some characters never, I mean, I guess in disaster situations you don't have time to grieve. Like, Ayumu didn't have time to grieve the death of her mother, or Koga, or anyone really close to her. And the more people that died, the more she just had to move on. And it's just, it's so, to me, it felt very jarring for her to go from this super emotional character that's super afraid about, like, death and sad that her parents died. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, guess I gotta move on now. Guess my leg is messed up. And it's just, I don't know. It's bothersome. I didn't like how the show handled the grief message either. It felt very glazed over and things got solved way too quickly. So finally is the animation, and something similar about Tokyo Magnitude 8.0 and Japan Sinks is they both took a very realistic animation style, which I like. If it had looked like something, say, like Hitalia, or even like Elfen Lied, or Tokyo Ghoul, or some of the more anime, like the typical anime style show, I think it would have broke the immersion a lot. But near the end of the series, the animation quality got worse. Like, the animators were just ready to be done with this show. And that's evidenced by how the last couple scenes were set up, and by how janky and weird the animation was. The scene before, like, Ayumu's mom goes in the water to, like, unhook the boat that they're on, her mom's hands are, like, huge. And I mean, her mom's kind of a thicker character, so, like, I would expect, like, her hands to be a little bit bigger than Ayumu's, but her hand was, like, huge. It was, like, bigger than her head, and that just broke the immersion for me. And there were also parts where, like, lines weren't completed. Like, I remember specifically on, like, the hands and stuff, and on the arms, like, lines just wouldn't be completed. And I know, like, sometimes you're gonna have broken lines here to, like, signify, like, that's a curve or a crease or whatever, but no, it would just be, like, a normal, like, the length of her arm, there would just be a complete chunk of, like, line art missing, and that was really jarring. And also, there were parts where the animation was amazing, and the scenes that they colored were so great, but near the end, I don't want to look at a slideshow, and that is quite literally how this show ended, on a slideshow. I'm not kidding. That was the thing Koga pretty much died for. The, like, plans for when Japan was gonna resurface, more or less, and a slideshow. That is infuriating, because I liked Koga, and you kill him for a slideshow? I do not get it. And it bothers me because the quality went down so much. And I'm like, you showed us these beautiful scenes in the beginning. What happened to the budget? Did you blow half of it on episode 1? I'm annoyed. I'm also running on a wee few hours of sleep, so if I sound a little bit snappy, that's why. So my final thoughts on the show: overall, with all its problems, I thought it was a good show. Is it great? Is it the best show I've ever seen? No. Is Tokyo Magnitude 8.0 the same thing but better? Absolutely. If all I've said today, like, turns you away from this show, I highly recommend Tokyo Magnitude 8.0. But I think this show did good as well. There was just parts that were, like, out there and weird. And I didn't talk about this character, but there's one, like, British Yugoslavian guy in here that's like, death is fine because I've already lost everything. He's very weird. He's a weird magician guy. I think his name is Benjamin. I'm not entirely sure. I can't fully remember. It doesn't really matter. He has an afro, which I've noticed is a thing that Japan will do with American characters or white characters. Give them afros. He was weird. He was strange. I don't really know the purpose of him. He didn't fulfill any real reason other than to spark some controversy between the daughter and the mom. He was strange. But overall, I think this was a chaotic show, and I liked it overall, as many flaws as it had. I don't think it was the worst show to pop up in existence. I definitely think, if you haven't watched it, you should give it a watch. Some people want a season 2, but it really doesn't need one. In any event. So that's it for this video. Please let me know what you think of Japan Sinks 2020 if you've seen it, and if not, what do you think of my review? Does it entice you to go watch it? I've more or less given away the entire plot, but there's still some things in there that are gonna make you go like, whoa, that happened, wow, okay, wow, things are a little weird. Which, yes, they are a little weird. Also, so Netflix has like warnings at the top of the screen, and it warned for like smoking, violence, and sexual content, which it had one episode that had that last part, but it gave no warning for like the gore, which granted it wasn't a lot, but it gave but there were more scenes of gore than sexual content, and I'm just like, Netflix, your warnings don't work. They work sometimes, but not all the time. In any event, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe for more random fandom things. Ciao, chicos.